I felt embarrassed.
It's very nice. Thank you.
For Christopher Reeve. And it also, I will say, in a metaphoric sense, it shows the limits of Superman's power. Because Christopher Reeve could not lift this movie out of the mire it's in. He's trying, but he's just not strong enough to shoulder the weight.
Superman 3, much more of a comic book. I miss the more romantic, even sentimental part of the character, but that's just my personal taste.
And he's doing all he can, and he's great to watch, but he's lost in that horrible story.
I can give as good as I get.
You can see it in some scenes, like this is often cited. People say, oh, that's not a great movie, but I do really like the Superman battling himself thing.
Sure.
That seemed like a fragment. That could have been like a fragment of a much better story. I like that whole sequence. And the whole his portrayal of the Superman.
Yeah.
You could tell he was really having fun with that.
Yeah.
Because it's great. But there's really no narrative backbone to that whole thing. That's
a big problem.
There's hints of it because there's like really interesting dialogue during that junkyard fight, which we'll get to. You've been on my nerves for a while, Kent.
Been on my nerves for a long time.
There's like some internal conflict suggested there, but we don't know what it is because they never delve into it, really.
I actually don't agree with you there that's handled well.
I didn't say it was handled well.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
I will say that it's their fault. It's the writer's fault.
Yeah,
that script, David and Leslie Newman, I can't compare their work too much. I mean, I've seen a few of their movies that they're responsible for the scripts. But this is so poorly conceived and so poorly constructed, and it's garbage writing.
Yeah. There's really nothing that pays off. I mean, nothing really goes anywhere.
Nothing that pays off. Exactly. And even the bits that watching it, here's the only, well, no, there are things I can say positive. So I'll get there. But first I'm venting. Forgive me. But here's the deal. Here are things that happen in this movie. Clark goes back home to Smallville. First time since his parents passed. High school reunion. Sees Lana for the first time since high school. Okay, that happens. Also, there is a plot where, due to an odd kryptonite offshoot, that he is split into kind of his darker evil impulses and his good side, and they have to fight. He fights himself. That happens in this movie. There is a supercomputer that becomes sentient and wants to take over the world. Superman's in its way, and this computer can target anyone's weakest points, their weaknesses. These are all plot points in Superman 3. Any one of those, or all of them, would make fine Superman story. If you were a good writer, you could take any of those plot points. Oh, Jimmy going with Clark to Smallville. I loved more Jimmy and Clark time. Yeah. Love that concept.
Wonderful setup, yeah.
All of these little things, if you were a good writer. This movie is insulting to children. You clearly can tell that they were like, no one watches these things but like 8-year-olds, so we're going to aim the humor at a bunch of kids. There are episodes of Super Friends that have far more dramatic weight.
What?
Than anything in Superman 3. And I'm sitting there going like, you guys don't get it. You are condescending to your audience and you are disrespecting the character. I am just, again, and this is after a week that I'm this worked up about it.
From watching this, I know that we talked about, because we love Superman 2. We do. I think we made that clear in our last episode. And Lester did an actually really great job at piecing together what he was handed and the limitations that he had.
He did a very professional job.
The Directors Guild put him in a bind where he couldn't use everything that Donner had already shot because Donner did not want to share credit. Therefore, he had to go and reshoot certain things just so he could earn his director's credit.
Yeah.
But anyway, to Lester's credit, when they were developing this film, initially Reeve did not want to come back. He did not want to do this movie. He had to be sweet talked into it by Lester. And because before this, the sound guys had actually gotten Tony Danza, of all people, to come in and fill the role.
Yeah. I read that.
Infamously, right? So Lester's like, no, it has to be Chris. So to his credit, he knew, and he at least knew that much, that we can't make this movie without Chris. What I don't understand is why he didn't ask for a better script, because clearly Lester has been around long enough to know what a good script was. He's one of those directors who works good with good material.
Well, no, I agree. No,
Not that there are some very classic Lester indulgences in this anyway.
But there also is, he's just the wrong man for the job. Whether he is very competent, which he was. I mean, I don't want to make too many excuses for him. I'm sure he was lovely and delightful. I'm sure Richard Lester took it as seriously as he could. But the thing is, he's not the guy.
Dick Lester, who directed Superman 3, was born in this country, but he left in the 50s to go to England. You know, this is the man who did Help and Hard Day's Night. Got a very wacky view of the world. And he's not so much into the sentimentality of the piece.
What grieves me is that, unlike today, where stars, depending on the star, even back in the 70s and 80s, some of them had enough clout to sit there saying, like, you want me? Well, I want to have some creative input on this thing. Christopher Reeve knows this is bad. He knows this is a bad script.
Congratulations, you have another hit with Superman 3, and
Thanks a lot.
Maybe I'll see you on Superman 4.
I don't think so, but we'll see me other places.
And in today's world, if they were making this now, Christopher Reeve would be so, at least have enough clout that he could have basically said, like, bring me we'll make the movie when it's ready. I care too much about the character, and this is just dumb.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, it happened again in the next movie too, which we'll get to. But
well, here's the thing, and this is, again, because I assume we'll cover 4, and I assume people will want to hear me get upset again, but I'll say it, or maybe you don't. Maybe they're like going, don't make Brendan watch 4. Here's the thing. I actually anticipate liking 4 better than this. And I know 4 is notoriously bad and was made for $500. But I think that because Christopher Reeve's story input, and he was trying really hard to make that a better Superman movie, I think that I might like it more, even given how cheap ass it is.
Yeah, it is more of an actual Superman story.
That is something this movie lacked,
as opposed to this, which is like a Richard Pryor movie with a subplot involving Superman.
Oh, and I also want to make this totally clear before we get into just going through the movie. I like everybody in this movie.
Oh yeah,
I like all of them. I love Robert Vaughn. I like Pamela Stephenson, who's playing the ditzy blonde, and I'm like, she's a funny actress, and she's given nothing here, and she's I'd be boop beep boop, okay, and she sleeps with Superman. God,
how about a little après-ski?
I don't know you, lady.
Anyway, I like obviously Richard Pryor.
When you're on fire and running down the street, people will get out of your way.
Just a few months ago, I was watching every one of his concert films because kind of was in a depressive state, and watching great stand-up comedy, especially done by someone as brilliant as him, was great. And it made me nostalgic. And I also watched Silver Streak and Stir Crazy, both of which still kill me. The Gene Wilder combo with Richard Pryor can't be beat. So in other words, I don't put the blame on any, and actually Richard Pryor in bits in this movie, I mean, he's great, and he's really acting.
There were a lot of parts I was laughing at because he's just funny.
Hello?
And then he's given something terrible to do.
And then a lot of the jokes just don't land.
Me and Superman?
Because they're just really poorly written. But it's not his fault.
But at least Superman and Richard Pryor do the soul brother handshake.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, my God. All right. So let's talk about the movie. Let's just get into it. Let's get this out of my system. And because I have been vomiting for a week.
I'm so sorry.
No. I mean, here's the thing. End of the day,
you literally got sick the day you watched it. You said, Chad, I got a fever.
Actually, that is true. I did come down with something the day after I watched it. And luckily it was just like a couple days, 3-day flu. But honestly, I was like, I'm trying hard not to blame Superman 3.